Part 2, Absolute Joy. This is a continuation from my art class on the South Side in the housing project. I realized it was a different day. So the carjacking actually happened a week or two later. I was going somewhere towards Indiana and I saw something happening on the side of the road and it looked very unusual. I was always the type of guy who would stop to help with a car tire or something. For a while it was because I had a cell phone in my car at a time when people didn't have cell phones. But in this instance, something just didn't look right. So I drove this way and I kept watching in the rearview mirror and nothing was changing. I saw this old woman outside of her car and I thought, this isn't good. So I went up to an off-ramp and I turned around and I came this way and I pulled up behind the other car and this young guy gets out of the car and runs to my window and I'm like, you guys need some help? And he looked like a gang guy, clearly. And he's like, no, we're okay. This is my grandma. And the grandma lady comes up to the other side. I'm not his grandma. I don't know this guy. And he's, yeah, she does. She has a memory problem, blah, blah, blah. And I'm, well, why don't you get in my car? It's safer until we have your car fixed because their cars are just whipping by. And she's, well, let me get something out of her car. But when she walked around on the traffic side, cars are whizzing by. And she almost stepped out into the lane of these traffic. The guy who was ultimately carjacking her, as we found out, grabbed her collar and pulled her back so she didn't get hit by this car that went by. And then he got in the car and he drove away. I went and I got this old lady and I said, get in the car. What's going on? And she said, he got in my car at the gas station and I was giving him such trouble in the car that he said, just get out. I'll pull over and you get out. And that's when you pulled up behind us. I was glad to have pulled behind them because it left him an area to drive away. So I go to a gas station and we wait and the highway sheriff comes by. I was sitting in the car waiting for the sheriff and I was talking to the woman and I said, you seem so not upset about it. And she says, well, I'm upset because I had the pies that I made for the church. They're in the car. I said, pies? Really? The guy? Did he have a weapon? She said, oh, he showed me something metal, but those guys don't scare me. I refused to let him upset me. And this is an 80-year-old grandma. I'll tell you what, I'll feel a little upset for you because I don't even know what's going on. And then the sheriff came up and we were still at a gas station, not in a good neighborhood. And he was kind of like, you're in as much trouble here as you were on the side. I'm just like, well, I don't know how to help her, you know? He's like, well, describe the guy. And I says, African-American guy. He's like, and? What kind of hair did he have? He said, what type of braids? Were they tight braids? Were they loose braids? Were they his skin color? Light? Dark? What was he wearing? All these things I didn't have as descriptors. A, because I was upset. B, I'm trying to remember what this guy looked like because I was focused on the grandma. And the cop's like, you know, her car will turn up somewhere. I said I would wait with her until someone from her family picked up, but I think he ended up driving her home. And he said, it worked out today, but it's not a good idea in this area, in this stretch in front of the projects to stop for anybody. And I see a grandma and stopping. And he said, well, it could be your last stop. He said, I don't know what to tell you. He had a hardness about him that was just this reality of you'll be killed for no reason, you'll be whatever. He's like, you're lucky he didn't take your car. I didn't even think of it. And I think he didn't take my car because my car was behind his car and he would have had to back up and then get out. He would have crashed. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is I did what I thought felt right, but I can see how doing what felt right may not be right because I was carrying my morals into a place that didn't share my morals. It's not like the universe works that way, I don't think. Don always used to say your intention is your protection, but I've heard of a lot of people that have been injured as assisting somebody. So I wondered in that instance, and it's hard to kind of sit up straight and tell a story with a smile, but that's what happened. When I stop for cars, it's less needed these days. Everybody has a cell phone and it's not as much of a problem. And sometimes people are just as afraid of you when you're coming up to help them. And so I kind of drive by with those things in mind these days. But remember, this was a different time. Those services were less common.